For most people, getting fired out of nowhere on a Friday afternoon is sure to ruin their weekend, but not in the case of Sam Altman, the CEO turned ex-CEO turned freshly reinstated CEO of OpenAI, the startup behind the famed ChatGPT. If you're confused, don't worry, so were we. But by the end of this video, you'll know exactly who Sam Altman is, why he's been trending in the news this past week, and how, despite a notoriously unceremonious ousting, he seems to have come out on top, even if he shouldn't have. Who is Sam Altman? Though Altman might be most well-known these days as the accomplished CEO and face of the cutting-edge startup known to be leading the AI race, his interest and involvement in the tech industry started way before OpenAI. Altman, currently 38, grew up in the suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri, as the oldest of 4 siblings, one of them being Jack Altman, whom he would later start the venture capital firm Hydrazine Capital with. Both Jack and Sam have described their upbringing in their Midwestern middle-class Jewish family as very affirming. Their parents, Connie, a dermatologist, and Jerry, a real estate broker, constantly encouraged them to believe they could do anything. In fact, it was a gift from Sam's parents that he credits with really cementing his budding passion for tech, a Macintosh LC2. Sam describes this gift, which he got when he was just 8, as a dividing line in my life, before I had a computer and after. As a further testament to his supportive parents, when Altman came out as gay when he was 16, it was really a non-issue for his parents, though his mom was admittedly surprised, saying that she had always thought of Sam as sort of unisexual and techie. Though he had a harder time feeling accepted in his private Jewish high school, he managed to make it through and has been openly gay through his whole adult life and is currently dating Oliver Mulherin, an Australian software engineer. Aside from his personal life, however, which he tends to keep fairly private, Altman's professional adult life would no doubt make his 8-year-old tech genius self proud. Though he dropped out from Stanford after a year, Altman went on to co-found and lead a number of companies, the most notable one in Silicon Valley perhaps being Y Combinator, a startup accelerator. Through his ventures, Altman has made a name and a bank account for himself as a serial entrepreneur and investor, and of course, the CEO of OpenAI. Which brings us to, why has Sam Altman been trending? Given his success and the groundbreaking products of his company, it's no surprise that Sam Altman's name has been in headlines before. But this past week, his name started trending not because another OpenAI product was getting 100 million signups in 2 months, but because of something that not only surely surprised Altman, but also had the entire AI community in an uproar. Last Friday, November 17th, Sam Altman was ousted as CEO from OpenAI.
Sam Altman is out as CEO of OpenAI, the company,
by none other than the board and his fellow co-founder and OpenAI's chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, who's reported to have been the ringleader on the dismissal. Here's everything we know so far. On Thursday night, November 16th, 2023, Altman got a text from Sutskever asking to meet the next day. Less than 24 hours later, at noon on November 17th, Altman was fired via a brief video call with Sutskever and everyone from the board present, except for its chairman and president, Greg Brockman. The reasoning given was that Altman was not consistently candid in his communication, an explanation that has satisfied no one and still remains vague. 23 minutes later, Ilya and the board met with Brockman and told him he was being removed as chairman, though he was requested to stay on in his vital role of president of the company around the same time. OpenAI's blog released a post updating the removal of Altman and demotion of Brockman, signaling that the decisions were a coordinated move on the board's part, though apparently no one else in management, including Altman and Brockman, knew these decisions were being made, the exception being the new interim CEO, Mura Murati, who had been informed Thursday night. Just hours later, Brockman resigned from OpenAI, prompting 3 other senior researchers at the startup to follow suit: Jakub Pachocki, Alexander Madry, and Simon Sidor. Despite Sutskever's apparent confidence in his initial decisions, it clearly wasn't being received as he hoped, and this broke his confidence. In a tweet early Monday morning, Sutskever publicly announced that he regretted his participation in the board's decisions, though many are unsatisfied, given that he was reported to have led the decisions. Regardless, Sutskever committed to his fresh stance in a signed letter released Monday morning to the OpenAI board from him and over 700 of the 770 OpenAI employees, in which they threatened to resign and join Microsoft which had swiftly hired Altman after his dismissal, unless the board reinstated Altman and then resigned themselves. And ultimately, the power lies with the people. As of late Tuesday, November 21st, Altman and Brockman have been reinstated in principle by OpenAI, and there has been a new initial board announced, with Ilya Sutskever stepping down from his board position as well, but maintaining his chief scientist role as of now. This comes as a whirlwind to not just OpenAI and those involved, but to OpenAI's biggest investor, Microsoft, as well, who had promptly hired Altman and Brockman after Friday's events. Ultimately, however, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Altman released a joint statement emphasizing that despite all the happenings, their united goal is to ensure that OpenAI thrives. After all, given that Microsoft owns nearly 50% of OpenAI, the startup's lasting success is in the best interest of both parties. Though the roller coaster seems to be ending, the AI community is still up in arms about what exactly happened, and while we wait for details, it's hard not to marvel at the question: how did Sam Altman come out on top through all of this? Given the level of response to his firing from the employees, the AI community, and the ringleader himself, it's easy to assume that Altman was simply an incredibly loved CEO and figure in the AI space. After all, not all ousted leaders have their employees fight as hard for them. Think about Elon Musk, who, incidentally, was a co-founder of OpenAI before stepping down years ago, when he was ousted from PayPal. But while Altman may well have been loved, the truth behind everyone's backlash towards the decision may be deeper. Firstly, as CEO of OpenAI, a proponent of OpenAI's for-profit subsidiary, Altman planned on allowing his existing employees to sell their shares in the privately held company via a transaction known as a tender offer. With the success and investments that OpenAI has gotten in the past few years, these employees were in for a big payday if this tender offer went through. OpenAI's current valuation is nearly $90 billion. Without Altman as the spearheading CEO, not to mention Brockman as well, employees knew the offer was in jeopardy, or at the very least, that OpenAI's valuation would decrease, and thus, so would the employees' payday. Naturally, you'd expect for the employees to want Altman back then, perhaps for his character and leadership, but also perhaps for their own bank accounts. Now, for those asking, well, why is the AI community, who wasn't going to get any money from the offer, up in arms then? This brings us to point 2. No one knows exactly why Altman was fired. The ex-board said that after a deliberative review process, they found that Altman was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, and that Altman lost the board's confidence. While those phrases vaguely point to something, they ultimately point to not much. For such an unceremonious and out-of-the-blue dismissal, Sutskever and the board should have known that there were going to be questions, not just from the OpenAI employees, who were blindsided and referred to the decisions as a coup and backroom deal, but from the larger AI community. From a business and leadership standpoint, if you're going to make such a controversial decision, especially without warning, be ready to explain your thought process fully, especially if you yourself are going to go back on your decision. Even if there are things such as NDAs at play here, those are things that one should consider before making a decision such as the one Sutskever and the board did. After all, perhaps Altman very well did deserve to be fired, but unfortunately, since the decision makers haven't been able to speak on it beyond vague reasonings, this week has effectively left a huge stain on Sutskever's reputation, and in fact, uplifted Altman as a winner, despite him having lost his title at the leading AI startup, if only temporarily.